Managing Director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so Tony digs really deep, and again, he sends me all these different stories every week and settles on one that we talk about here on these Tuesdays. Always good stuff. Tony, I hope everybody's safe.
Everybody is safe and well, and hope the same for you, my friend.
Yes, sir. So, all right, I know you want to go off in a different direction to begin this, but eventually we're going to circle back to the economics, I guess, of COVID, right?
Well, yeah, and I was, it is an honor to be here and proud to be among all you guys. And, you don't have me here to do the red and the blue. You have me here to watch the green as best as I can. But, with the whole business about, the governor and the infant and all of that, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to deal with this from a statistical standpoint, because in my business, we live and die by statistics, reporting. We make commitments based upon, data that we believe to be reliable. If there is one little taint in any statistics where any amount of decision or capital is being made, then you ask yourself, where else is there? It's one of our favorite axioms is if you see one mouse in the house, you could assume that there's others in the region. So that if decisions are being made on bad data and bazillions of dollars, untold amounts of dollars are being thrown all over the place because of it, I just get very concerned that we have a problem that's much greater than anybody could really get their head around.
What do you mean? Explain that as far as...
I'll put it this way, and again, it's not... with respect to the infant that passed on, was the infant infected or not? If this somehow maligns itself into a statistic, and dollars are driven because of that statistic, and there's an error, be it human error, deliberate error, whatever the case may be, then we have to look at everything and say, well, what ball game are we watching, Lee? And it's just the thing that it gets really concerning when if something takes place like that, are the resources really being deployed to where they need to do? Because there's clearly some sort of error here. The question is, how pervasive is it?
So what Tony's talking about, just in case folks don't know, is Candice Owens on Friday. We talked about this yesterday a little bit, talk a little bit more about it today, but she released a video calling Lamont essentially a liar for going above maybe where he should have gone and saying that a young toddler had died. And his wording, I got to find his wording, his exact wordings, but it wasn't that he died from corona. It was from as a result or something, right?
Or due to a cause of
something to that effect. It gave people the impression that the child died because of corona. No question about that. Now, the obvious thing we have to ask is: did he do this on purpose? Did he do it to instill panic? And why would he do that? Or was he sort of searching for, as you had said, more money from Uncle Sam to force, to push our way to maybe, I don't know. You tell me.
And how could I put it, Lee? I mean, that's a red issue or a blue issue. And, if I'm looking at this in the green, if I'm looking at this as far as where it is, two things go in my mind. Are you evil or are you incompetent? I'm not saying the governor as such, but it's like, what's wrong with this picture? And it's that if dollars are being deployed for resources, for economic resources, for closing businesses and things like that, are we looking at the right game here? That's my concern.
Well, I think that actually, to me, what has to sort of be ferreted out is what you had initially gotten to. We have to know whether or not the governor knew he was stepping outside of the lines when he said that. Now, if they handed him a message, like his people handed him a message, said this child died as a result of corona, and he read it, all right, it's his fault because the buck stops with him, but it is his fault, but it's also his handler's fault, his people's fault, and head should roll because of that, because people need accuracy. They're already panicked, Tony, right? The people out here are already in panic mode. They don't need more. I know how many young mothers, right, just lost their mind when they heard that news, right? How many mothers-to-be who are pregnant right now who found out that a very young child died and they thought it was because of this? They're going to be beside themselves.
And that's the part I think that when you look at this whole thing going forward, we have people whom I believe are well-meaning people who are looking at statistics and trying to make decisions because of that. Now, if the statistics are tainted in any way, by definitionally, they are making the wrong decisions.
Sure.
Simple as that, and just as difficult.
Well, you could say that about a number of things that have happened already. Now, whether it was done maliciously, I would hope not, or was it done? For example, I'll give you another one real quick, and then you can get to what you got to get to.
Sure.
Is that they originally told us not to wear masks, right? Mm-hmm. Surgeon General came on television, don't wear masks, it's a waste. Now, was that because they were just wrong, or was it because that they knew they didn't have enough masks and they only wanted they wanted to make sure the medical personnel had enough masks? And if that was the case, they should have just said that to us. Said, listen, go figure out a way to make your own masks, because these people are going to be trying to save your life. They need the real masks, right? I think the American people deserve some kind of honesty. And
that's just it. Good information takes away fear. Bad information cloaked in all kinds of, you get into mistakes, you get into panic, and then you get into much bigger messes because of it. And, again, simple as that and just as difficult.
All right. What do you got here?
Well, when we talk about maligning statistics or statistics being used, there's a very interesting report I came across. It's from an organization which is a think tank. Some people may be familiar with it, known as the Connecticut Voices for Children. You can find this on their website. It's called Supporting Connecticut's Economy, a program to manage the coronavirus recession and recovery, drafted largely by a gentleman, Dr. Patrick O'Brien, who is a professor at Trinity College. You could look at Dr. O'Brien's resume. He's got degrees as long as one's arm. Dr. O'Brien builds what he believes is a convincing case. Again, we're talking about good and bad informationally, statistics, about how Connecticut can stop coronavirus and recessions and build the economy back. And basically, the conclusions in this report is you got to raise the taxes on the wealthy. You will find that in this report 13 times. Now, his entire backbone, in other words, his number one pitch in this whole thing is he gives you a table on page 13. He talks about the fact that the wealthy do not pay enough taxes, and he runs a table from 1 to 10 in what's known as deciles or however you want to use your statistical terms, that people making less than $50,000 a year pay a tax rate of 23.6%, and people making $13 million pay a tax rate of 6.28%. But the question is, as Walter Bailey used to yell at me at Rogers and Wells, Tony, you say tax. What kind of tax are you talking about? When Dr. O'Brien does this report, which he bases his whole conclusion on, that poor people pay a whole lot of taxes. Sure, they're paying Social Security when you talk about tax in the generic. Social Security caps out at $137,000. Wealthy people cannot pay more Social Security taxes even if they wanted to. If you run the numbers, and if you actually go to the DRS's own website and punch in the $50,000 figure, you end up with $2,000 worth of taxes. Where if you punch in $13 million, you end up with $922,000. The first one's at 4%. The second is at 7%. And Lee, what drives me absolutely crazy is people like Dr. O'Brien, who have never, ever, ever worked a profit-making day in their lives, make these prognostications. Governments spend money because of it. More bureaucrats are not going to save you from anything. They didn't the last time out. So it's like, when does the light go on for? Maybe I've just been locked in the woods too much, working too hard.
I don't think the light. Oh, man. Yeah, the light never goes on. It never goes on.
Thank you.
Hey, real quick. I don't think we've talked about this yet. Just really on a completely different subject. So the actual April 15th tax deadline is fast approaching, but they have officially moved that.
All 50 states and the United States government, but be very careful, folks. It's only for income taxes and first quarter estimates. Check with your professional. You might have other tax obligations, so don't go flying blind, and especially with all the stimulus and the paycheck protection.
Right.
Maybe we'll talk about that next time. There is so much misinformation. I have thrown myself in front of so many impending train wrecks. I'm beginning to see tire tracks in my back.
Well, let me throw one thing at you, because by the time next week comes rolling around, it'll be on the eve of tax day, the old tax day. Would you say then, if folks have the money to pay their taxes, they are better off to pay it now than wait?
I think it's good to get it out of the way, because typically what happens is you have something, in my experience, and you set it aside and you think that's for that.
Yep.
Something happens and then you forget. There's just so many little balls you have to sort of keep your eye on. Unless you're a very, very, very disciplined person, yes, pay them now rather than get into messes later, because we see 2 years, 3 years down the road after this happens, all the compromise cases come out because people didn't pay their taxes when they were supposed to.
All right, brother. Listen, stay safe. I'll talk to you next week.
You too, pal.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Bye.
There you go. Tony D giving you some insight on some different things, and I guess that means I'm going to have to go do my taxes. Man, I hate doing my taxes. All right.